Hi, hello, welcome. I'm Martina and I'm here with Christina, and we are your podcast host for everyday, ordinary, extraordinary women. We're deep divers and avid students of life and powerful facilitators for healing. In real life, I'm a life coach specializing in parent and women empowerment, and I'm also a sound healer.
Hi, I'm Christina. I'm an intuitive healer who loves to blend massage therapy with energy work to provide customized holistic services for my clients. Martina and I both love to incorporate crystals, essential oils, angelic Reiki, and intuitive guidance into all our work.
So let me tell you about what inspired us. What inspired us to create this podcast was after pondering on this question. What would the world look like where we can be inspired by every person? And usually we are so quick to compare and judge ourselves and others, always others as well, right? And when we do that, everybody's losing. So depending on my point of view, I can either feel small because I come out lacking, or arrogant and dismissive because I feel superior. And those are the only two options. And neither of those options make us feel good. So here's our thought. Someone's everyday normal is someone else's extraordinary. Judgment comes from first impressions. And we invite you, the listener, to go beyond first impressions and see the magic everywhere. There's inspiration at every corner, in everyone, if we're willing to look. And today we're here with Deirdre. Deirdre, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And I'm just so excited to share and see what's in store for all of us here. So I'm a divorced mom to two standout from the crowd sons, Frankie and Ryan. I'm a shadow work coach, a heart math coach, Kundalini yoga instructor wannabe. I went through half of my training, but didn't complete it. I'm a peace ambassador, a transformational leader, and a conscious creative. And what I do is I'm a former right hand to the chairman and CEO of the New York Stock Exchange. Alexa's going off. I'm so sorry.
No worries, it's all good.
I'm sorry about that. So I'm a former right hand to the chairman and CEO of the New York Stock Exchange. And as such, I interacted with financial industry leaders on Wall Street and authority figures of church and state, even President Reagan.
Wow.
And since I've had 4 significant spiritual wake-up calls in life, all having to do with society's fundamental unit, the family. But it took the 4th to really get my attention. In 2007-8, I found myself going through a divorce, and I desperately needed to accept my situation exactly as it was, although unbearably sad and heartbreaking. I knew I contributed to the demise of my marriage and the breakdown of my family of 4, but I didn't understand how and why. So my BFF at the time kept pestering me to go to talk therapy. Finally, she made an appointment and I showed up. And oh, what a sight for sore eyes. This very reputable therapist ended up being. For the sake of time, I'll spare you the details, but long story short, she looked at me and said, "You look like you have it all together. You don't need me. But have you ever heard of a book titled Spiritual Divorce? Divorce as a Catalyst for an Extraordinary Life by Debbie Ford?" And I said, no. And she said, well, that's what you need. Come, I'll write down the title for you. And lastly, she said, now leave here and go straight to Barnes & Noble and don't go home without buying the book. And now for 15 plus years, I've been supporting mothers and nannies of children 0 to 8 years old to heal their unhealthy attachment with their own primary caregiver in their childhood, and to choose authenticity once and for all so that they can create positive connection in their family relationships and peace in their home and be the change the world is longing for.
Wow. It starts at home, right? It starts in the family unit. And I met you during one of our trainings with Debbie Ford, and what an honor it was to meet you and to work with you. And we even put an event together at one point. And, I always remember that in one of the trainings, and it might have been Heal Your Heart, it might have been Spiritual Divorce, where one of your actions was to contact the Vatican and send them the book, which for me was such a big step and so beautiful as well, right? Because if we get to transform those places, if we get to do the work in those places, how powerful. But the clarity that you had of taking it on was just so beautiful and inspiring and empowering to watch you go. And it's like, okay, I'm just going to write a letter. I'm going to write another letter. I'm going to write another letter. I'm going to write another letter. Like that being unstoppable inside of that was just so beautiful to watch. So I am so excited to be here with you. Now, if we really knew you, if we really, really knew you, what would we know?
At this point in my life, you would know that I'm everything. I'm saint and I'm sinner. But I really worked on becoming whole again. So now I have a choice when I'm faced with certain situations, and I can choose to be a saint or a sinner in the moment. And I would say I rarely, if ever, choose sinner anymore, because I'm that committed to being the best version of me and not lowering myself to meet a lot of what's going on in this world, and to hopefully give people a hand up and help all boats rise, right? If I go down where they are, it's all over for me anyway. But yeah, so I'm pretty whole. I'm definitely healthy, and I'm really happy. I'm beyond happy. I'm joyful.
Hmm.
Day in and day out.
And it's a constant work, right? It's the constant.
Oh gosh, works in progress always.
And
But
then there's another one. There's a person showing up, and you're like, oh, but okay, how am I like that, right?
I'll tell you what shifted for me on this really fast is that I used to care in the way I was raised, what the neighbors think, what the people out there think. And when I did a 180 overnight with my sons, and it was the hottest night of my life. I laid in bed all night, in a fetal position crying, and it was totally a dark night of the soul. But that's why I'm so committed to being because that night I decided I could never regress, not for a moment, never mind a day, that if I'm leader by example and they're modeling me, I only care what they think, because they're going to imitate my thoughts, words, and deeds. So I took it very seriously.
Beautiful. What a gift. It really is.
Still hard. Right? Yeah, but
It really is, it's like
it's like everything else you practice though, right? The more you do it, the easier it gets. So
and like parenting is all about the parent. It's not about the child. Like,
thank you.
And that's the work, like that's the work I do. That seems to be the work you do, right? It's all about the parent and not about the child. And if you want your child to be a certain way, it starts with you. You have to start to model it so they can follow suit, right? Because they cannot learn it anywhere else, right? If you want your child to be more courageous, then when did you take on a project that took courage? If you want your child to be resilient, when did you last do that, right? So, yeah, beautiful.
Deirdre, I'm curious, the icebreaker question. Tell us a funny, silly, or embarrassing story about yourself.
I love the one that came to mind immediately. So my son Frankie was 3 to 4 years old, and we were in the supermarket together. And he was dilly-dallying, as he is quite his nature, in one particular aisle. And I was eager to check out and rush and get to the next place. And so I happened to say, I'm leaving. To this day, it takes my breath away because it's an empty threat as I see it now. And And I learned not to do that again. However, the funniest part was when I said I'm leaving, and really, right, it's to intimidate him into compliance, which is so wrong, but I wasn't as conscious. I turned around and started to walk in the opposite direction, and I could just hear the pitter-patter. He came running. He really was at the far end of the aisle. So I hear the feet coming faster and faster and faster. And it just so happens, as I stepped forward, he was about to run into me full speed. And so he could only grab a hold of my pants, my leggings, and slow motion, he went down to the floor and my pants to my ankles in the supermarket. Thank God the underwear stayed intact. But we were both laughing so hard. The more I said, let go, let go, let go, like he couldn't. We were like, and it's the funniest moment, even to this day when I tell people. So for me, that was very hysterical. And I was so aware, like people, it was one of those supermarkets where you know everybody, and then the cameras. I remember being aware, but neither one of us could get up with the laughing. So that's my funny story. But the lesson was no empty threats to anybody, but to your children. What do they learn? You know, your words and actions don't match. Now you're not safe and trustworthy. Like it's so much bigger than that in hindsight, when I reflected on it, but it was a funny teaching moment.
Oh my
It's,
word.
but at the same time, everybody does it, right? It's like, so we don't want to shame anyone.
Right.
We all know that it's not the best way of dealing with it, but it's a great story because it's like, yeah, okay, it should, again, the universe showed you. We don't do that. We
It really
don't do that. Don't make threats that you're not willing to follow through.
There's
Yeah,
that reminder, right? Works in progress. So
yes, absolutely.
yeah.
And
So,
opportunities to laugh at ourselves too. Those are always
yeah,
good.
absolutely.
It's a good one.
So what do you consider your superpower to be? What is your superpower?
I'll tell you honestly, at first I thought my EQ, my emotional intelligence, and then I said my sensitivity. But the one that feels right to share is being a middle child.
Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so middle child, you right, refers to the idea of middle children are treated differently, and as a result, right, you develop certain traits. And I'm one of 7, 6 girls and a boy, 3 older, 3 younger. So I really truly am a middle child, smack in the middle, in a group of my own, because my mother referred to the 3 older ones, the 3 younger ones, and she constantly did not know what to do with me. And my entire life to this day, she'll say, leave it to Deirdre to be different. I only asked her about 2 years ago, and she's going to turn 92 in April. And she said, I said, what did you mean when you said that? And she said, I don't know. I said, if you did know, what would you say? And she said, I don't know, a rebel. At the same time, like I lived the good girl, people pleaser path because, God forbid we didn't obey and comply or conform. But that was a big thing. But basically, it's such a superpower because it helps me to create connection and peace, which is what I help my clients, the results I help them get. And it's someone who incorporates all those other 2 things I mentioned, in the sense it's someone who's empathetic, actively listens, communicates openly, is respectful of different perspectives, seeks common ground, and prioritizes understanding over conflict resolution. Like it's within that, but I care more to understand from where they come. And then the conflict automatically kind of resolves itself, instead of just going for getting 2 people to agree, right? Who disagree to agree. And I don't know, I'm just essentially a mediator and a peacemaker who can navigate difficult situations and with grace and compassion, always like fostering positive relationships with others. But but first and foremost within families.
I love that. I'm a middle child too.
Oh,
I can relate. Yeah. You always want to like be able to have them see each other's sides and point of views, but always being the mediator in the middle to try to like make everyone get along. And yeah.
and if I may just share a quick example, so I went to Iran by myself in 2016. I did join 8 other people there, but they were strangers to me. I felt called to go. It's a long story. I won't share how, but it's a beautiful story. So I spent 15 days in Iran. We flew into Tehran. 2 days later, flew south, and then we went east and west across the whole country back up. 15 days. All kinds of environments, ancient, modern, etc. But at the very end, our guide took me aside and said, I just want to share with you what every Iranian said about you to me, who you interacted with, in Farsi. Hardly anyone spoke English, interestingly, but and he says to me, every single one of them said, she's the lady of peace. So, wow, what a way to leave Iran. And I can leave the middle child piece at that.
What a gift.
Mm-hmm. A gift to me and then to others. But,
yeah, gift to others, right? Yes, of course to you, but what a gift.
Yeah, but I didn't think so. I thought it was a curse most of my life.
Of course.
You know, the Sesame Street song, one of these things is not like the others. One of these things doesn't belong. Like that was a lot of years of my existence, and didn't feel good. But I wouldn't change it for the world now.
What made us who we are today, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, what made you who you are today? What was your biggest lesson, or what took the most courage, or when did you take a stand for something that mattered?
Well, Martina, I can't recall if when we met, I had already gone through the annulment. It was 2011. So, my biggest lesson was the annulment of my 17-year marriage by the Catholic Church. And last week I was divorced as long as I was married now. So it's 17 and 17, it would have been 34 years. And I'd be lying if I didn't say I was a lioness protecting her cubs, right? But I really didn't think that could happen to me. So I was holding on with such resistance, right? Plus I was defending 17 years of the existence of my life when I always had like a thing about not feeling like I existed. But also I was facing the patriarchal hierarchy. I mean, when I go big. So it was at St. Patrick's Cathedral down in New York City, which I think the whole world knows that second to the Vatican. Like we don't know other archdioceses, but everyone seems to know that one. And I was scared to death. At the same time, I felt held and inspired, to stand up to a judge and jury of all men, very highly educated men. The entire judge and jury was lawyers and very, very, very high in the Catholic Church. And it was a year-long trial. But it was a lot of witnesses and testimony and written stuff. But I went there very prepared. But the biggest lesson was to surrender, right, to what I couldn't change. And it also, I probably already was one of those people who stands up for the underdog, but that really solidified it for me. And the really good news is actually it freed me from Catholicism, which never resonated with me from the day I was born. I was born into this faith that And I was a very wise child. Like I was very aware of the hypocrisy in all the adults in my world who were not being nice to anyone who was different from us. So once I got over like the resistance and holding on, and you can't do this to me and my kids, plus the question mark about them being illegitimate now and born out of wedlock was like, what? And so, but the bottom line is it freed me to be one with all, which is truly what I believe. And I want to give another example of what it ended up helping me to stand for. After I came back from Iran in 2016, I came back to a pile of mail, and there was a jury duty notice in there for a grand jury. Huge case in White Plains, which here is like second to New York City. It's a huge city, right? And I'm like, what do we do when we get a jury duty notice? I'm getting out of this, or what can I do to get out of this, right? So I went through all that, and I have a particular brother-in-law who is a former New York State police and now with Homeland Security. So of course I call him like, what can I do to get out of this? He's like, I don't think anything anymore. That used to be a thing if you had a cop in the family or whatever. But so anyway, get in the shower that morning. And like you ladies, we're used to hearing things guide us and call us. I was pretty much told very loudly, get ready, you're getting picked. And I was like, okay. I was in acceptance, but even the drive there, I'm like, no, I'm not getting picked. I went back and forth. And then I get there, the highest security jury duty I've ever experienced in my life, police everywhere, inside out, TV networks and everything. And then when I went in, there was a room and there was seriously 100 people. So I sat there and said, there's 100 of us. I mean, what's the likelihood of me getting picked? I kept going back and forth. Then they split us into two groups of 50, two separate rooms. So two cases, right? And it came again. You're getting picked. It doesn't matter how many people are here. I was the second name out of the till there. And I was just like, okay. So went up to the stand, and then they got the 8 people, and then they dismissed everyone else. And then they questioned you. Well, sorry, they questioned us first to see if we were suitable. And I did still try. I said, I told them about my brother-in-law. The judge is like, sit down. That's no excuse. You're serving. So long story short, then everyone was dismissed, and then they shared the case. And the case was 2 Muslim brothers, twin brothers, had just come back from Iran, who were arrested 4 years earlier for disturbing the peace in White Plains. But now this case was the 2 of them suing a particular police officer et al., so the entire city of White Plains Police Department, for racial profiling. And the bottom line is, nothing was working in the police station that evening. No cameras, no anything. They were beaten to a pulp, unrecognizable, et cetera, et cetera. And now I'm like, of course I'm on this case. And do you know how the defendant and the plaintiff attorney chooses which jurors they go with? I'll tell that at the end, I mean, maybe. But anyway, I'll try to make it quick. I'm also former right hand to the chairman and CEO of the stock exchange, right? So shorthand, attention to detail, the whole thing. I remembered, I'm taking shorthand. My notes are like, I don't miss anything. So each juror and everything, and every single time somebody, a witness, contradicted someone else, I would have a reaction. The judge would look at me below his, above his glasses and react too. We were just in sight of each other. And it would go on. Okay, now we go to deliberations after a long run. And we're there 5 days. And he wanted a unanimous decision, all 8 of us, on everything. All 7, boom, didn't even need to stay 5 minutes. They didn't need to, one was a little iffy. They're like, we're out of here. But this was, as we're walking back into deliberations room, there was one fella in front of me, and he actually said, his back was to me, we're walking, he actually clapped his hands and said out loud, how about we give these 2 towel heads a few minutes of our time and then we hang them. This is one of my peer jury fellows. So 5 days, I'm not budging on anything. Plus, I had my notes. So we were having just conversations and they were all getting very upset with me. I'm trying to cut to the chase. It's a long story. But anyway, I said, don't believe me. Let's get the transcript. They wouldn't. They had their minds made up. And I was able to tell them all the contradictions and one wasn't matching for me, but they didn't want to hear it. And so one day, it's interesting that people have called this fellow, very short fellow, and they said he has Napoleon syndrome. So he was very angry and all that stuff. He stood up and he just said, we had to sit there from 9 to 5 with no one talking, anger, like, and he said, you're so smart. You think you know every detail. He said, tell us, it's a Tuesday. He said, tell us what we all had for lunch last Friday. And no joke, ladies, I was able to tell him. And then he said, holy shit, you know, she remembers what we had for lunch. So the next day I had had enough. I was like, how can I get out of this? And the only thing I came up with was like, just to tell them that I'm in good conscience, I can no longer serve. Nothing was moving, right? So the foreman let the judge know. He took us all in. He goes, I understand one of you feel you no longer can serve. You weren't identified. So I'm going to ask you all to return to the deliberations room. And he or she collect their belongings and return to the courtroom. Now, the only 2 lay people in there was the mother and father of these 2 beautiful young men, Muslim. And the entire court, there wasn't an empty seat, a sea of blue, all police officers. And they had me re-enter. I didn't know my rights. I wanted to jump out a window. Like, it was scary, you know? Now I'm going to be identified. So I come up the middle aisle, and the judge says, come closer, Miss Guilfoyle. I said, I stepped a little, come closer. And he goes, come all the way up to the bench. So I was more comfortable behind them than in front of them, right? They're all staring at my back. And he's a judge. He was stern, but he said, do you know what I think of a person with a good conscience? I said, no, Your Honor. I said, I couldn't possibly. He said, I think a person with a good conscience is a good person. He says, the unfortunate news, so I'm going to let you go, but we're going to continue without you. Then I was like, oh, these poor guys. I said, but he said, the bad news is you're not going to get to eat the lunch we bought you. And I said, well, I'd like both sides to cross the aisle and share my lunch. And I left, escorted. So it was long, but that's what I stand up for.
It's so like, you know, talking about superpowers, like that resilience, that being unstoppable, that standing up for something you believe in. I mean, the list can go on and on and on, right? So beautiful. So beautiful. And, you know, I can only imagine the courage to speak up for something that you believe in and not caving, right? Not caving. And being so clear of, I cannot be part of this anymore if this is where we're going. Wow, beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
So let's shift gears a little bit. So tell us about the time you took a chance for love. And it might not
Related,
be
right? No.
necessarily romantic love. It doesn't have to be romantic love. When did you take a chance for love?
Well, I can say I took a chance for romantic love in marrying my husband, Frank, ex-husband now. And I took a chance for self-love by divorcing him. And it's interesting, the poor guy, right? Also a former, well, he's still Catholic, but raised that way. He came from Northern Ireland, a war zone. His mom was killed in a tragic car accident when he was 11. Then he had the stepmother. Like, trauma attracts trauma. Like, we had a similar wounding, and it brought us together, and in a lot of ways it was like a living hell, but I could say now he was the perfect husband for me. My soul needed to learn lessons from him, and I'm so grateful to him for it. And who wants to get divorced? It was so sad and heart-wrenching, and but I just could no longer do what I was doing, and which was rejecting and abandoning myself. So yeah, it's a gorgeous story, both sides of it, and I'm free to be me.
Those are my favorite answers to that question. I just love when you can get to the point where you can truly love the entire journey of a marriage that didn't last, right? Like when you can honor what you got from it, and I love that answer. Yeah. What fills
So,
you up?
I just want to
Yeah.
say there were lots of signs. The week of, real shortly, people were coming into town. We had 360 people invited to our wedding. A lot of out-of-towners. They're arriving, and he asked me, "Can we talk?" So we sit down briefly, and he seriously said to me, "I just want you not getting buried with you." So I certainly didn't know what to do with that, and I cried and cried and cried like a baby. The Wednesday was the rehearsal dinner. The rehearsal at the church, he never showed up. He showed up eventually. There were no cell phones. He was stuck behind an accident where there was a death, so they shut everything down, and then there's hours to investigate. And then the day of the wedding, his limo got a flat tire, had to come, right? Left my house. My limo had to leave the girls and go get the guys. It got another flat tire. When it picked up the guys, it got a third flat tire. And the rest is history. But there was a lot of signs the week of.
Isn't it amazing, right?
I
Like
still
all
took it.
these, and we decide to push through, and it doesn't mean anything, rather than, and sometimes it doesn't mean anything, right? But sometimes those signs are wake-up calls, right? It's like, yeah,
Well,
okay,
'cause
it's
they
time.
were, because I remember thinking like, it's paid for, the people are arriving, like it wasn't maybe, but at the end, there's no, it was meant to still be for 17 years. Yeah.
Well, and
Thankful.
you got the gift of your two beautiful children, plus all the other gifts that you got, right? Like as Debbie talks about, what were your wedding gifts, right? And like who you became were
Mhm.
your biggest wedding gifts. And sometimes it's just having your children because they taught you all that you need to learn, right?
I
So
would do it all over again. I wouldn't change a thing. So,
yeah,
yeah.
beautiful. So if you had a magic wand and you could give people any quality, what would it be and why?
Definitely integrity.
Mm.
Um, that's the quality of being honest and having strong moral uprightness, right? And it's also the state of being whole and undivided. And to me, if we're whole unto ourselves, we have everything we need to do the right thing, right? Right and wrong is different for each person. I get that, but there's still a certain level of moral rightness that everyone, I think, can agree on, or at least try. And two quick examples is my boy. I used to work for the CEO of the New York Stock Exchange, and so I was there for the crash of 1987. The entire pressure from the White House to the Fed to all the traders on the floor, plus the shareholders, right? To close the market, close the market, close the market. Fear. Here's a single man, I mean, married, but single guy, like unto himself, like he was having all the conversations, open to everyone's input and everything, but I found him self-reflecting a lot and just taking walks by himself, and he's a great example for me because I was watching him so closely. I was so young. I was early 20s, maybe only 20, 21, but I remember saying, wow, he's not wavering with all this pressure. And what I really saw was him trusting his gut. which is what I was lacking most of my life. I was disconnected from it at birth. And so I was like in such awe. And against all odds, he kept the markets open. He also got the Fed to lend more money so they could keep the trading going. It's the first time he went down and rang the closing bell, and then in the morning rang the opening bell, and he walked that floor all day, cheering them on, the traders. And you talk about integrity. And when he passed in 2012, his son was interviewed, his son Peter, and he said that when they asked him, what would you say your dad's legacy was? And he actually said integrity. So it's that for me as well. Yeah.
I love it.
Role model. Powerful role model, right?
Oh, what a guy. Like he didn't have the best reputation. People thought like he didn't have a bedside manner, so to speak. He was quite sullen. I loved him because he didn't need to be my friend. I was in awe of his leadership.
It's so good. It's such a good point. Like it's not his job to be friends with people, right? Like he doesn't need to speak, I don't know. He just needs to communicate what he needs to communicate. And it's funny that people make that mean something else than what it truly is, that he's an important man with an important role and he's got stuff to do, right? So he's going to tell you what he has to say and move on. But people make it mean all sorts of crazy things. And yeah, good stuff. Deirdre, what fills you up, recharges your batteries, and gives you energy to keep doing all the good work you do?
First and foremost is my morning spiritual practice. Since 2007, no joke, 7 days a week, from 4 to 7, 3 hours, I do. At this point, I don't have to set a clock, like my body just wakes up, but I also go to bed very early because I can. But without that, it clears me from the day before. It clears me from like whatever, a poor night's sleep, which I rarely have. I'm very sound. And it gives me a clean slate to approach the new day. And I really started that after my divorce. I wanted to be that clear space for my sons. I had a lot going on mentally, emotionally, financially, like a lot of, and I just wanted to show up as clear as I could for them. And that's what started that ritual, because once they're awake, life's not your own. So I made sure it happened.
So what goes into your 3-hour morning spiritual practice?
Yoga, meditation, journaling, and a walk in nature. And most times, no matter about the weather. And the other two things quickly that fill me up is experiencing various cultures and faith traditions. And I grew up saying I hate people, but I actually love people, and meeting everyone who's different than me actually teaches me more about who I am. Besides who they are, I get to learn who I am and who I'm not in the contrast. It's the most gorgeous practice. And then the third thing is I still part-time nanny very intentionally so I can get in the homes and learn more and more and more. But my favorite time is spending time with 2-year-olds. When their strong emotions are coming and they're testing independence, and I'm like, yes, you're mad, tell me why. Let's talk, and and nurturing the independence, like it wasn't done for me, and I didn't know how to do it with my sons until, a few years down the road. But my favorite stage, 2-year-olds.
Just that curiosity and wonder in every single thing they touch is just exquisite. Yeah.
And I'm sure, because I see it witnessed a few days a week, that we are born with everything we need to navigate this world. And they're evidencing that every time I'm with them.
Yeah, and then we're taught we're not allowed, we shouldn't be this or we shouldn't be that, or, do as I say, not do as I
do.
Exactly. Or whichever version of that. Yeah, I can totally get it. And then we squish them. Right? That's one of the things I say when people tell me, wow, your kids are so extraordinary. I'm like, I just got out of the way. That's the work I did. I just tried to get out of the way and do my own work.
And my take on that is, and it makes me sad that they're saying now that the terrible twos is now the new hateful eights. They'll always come up with something, but my point is somebody who wasn't equipped, right, to tolerate the beauty of a developing 2-year-old, labeled them terrible twos. And again, the adults issue, right? I'm telling you, it's never the child.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah, they're just experimenting and growing and learning.
And copying us.
Absolutely. Yeah. And thinking that it's so, I remember way back when somebody was sharing that when kids see you get mad, it's like watching a movie, and it's so much fun because, like your voice raises and you start moving and you're, so for them, it's like, it's the coolest thing. Let's try that again. Yeah. Okay. What do I need to do or say so I can get that reaction again? Right. And it's a game, right? At the beginning, and then they forget it's a game.
But I also believe, put ourselves in a timeout, not the child.
Yeah.
We're the ones about to lose self-control and, as you say, raise your voice. But the animation can be quite entertaining.
It is. I imagine it is from the outside. If you look, if you wouldn't hear the voice or anything, you just see the still movie. It's actually quite fun. So
yeah, if you're not making it mean anything about yourself, then
absolutely. Absolutely. So Deirdre, last question. What are you most proud of? What do you consider your biggest accomplishment?
It's almost natural for a mother to say her sons, but I have a but. But only because I did a 180 when they were 9 and 14. Had I not, I'm sure they wouldn't be the gentlemen they are today. So, healing myself from my own unhealthy attachment relationship with my own mother and choosing authenticity later in life, it's never too late. Allowed them then to choose the college they want, the major they wanted, the city they wanted to go to school in, and the girls, that they want, one's married and one's serious in a relationship. And we're no longer Catholic, right? But I can say that they walk this earth like Jesus. Like they just naturally walk this earth like the greatest Christians. They are the best human beings I've ever personally experienced, and not because I raised them. I changed. I stopped controlling. I just started to guide them inside to get their own answers to who they are. And I just held that space and let them show me who they are and what they want. And today, they're not just successful in their careers, right? But they never drank, never smoked, and I don't judge it. But they'll tell me, like, they don't even need that to be happy and aligned. Like, and their friends do, and they're still able to be with it. Just like, don't sleep in my bed. Here's a garbage can, but like, they're so cool to me. I just, yeah, they move me. And it's the best company I like to be in is theirs. They're just amazing. And they're 32 and 27 now. One's in New York, one's in California. And to this day, I have never broken up a fight between them. Not one. I would just say, if it starts to escalate a little bit, only love in this house. And they're alike and they're different, and but they're true brothers, it's I don't know, can't say enough, but it's only because I transformed me.
Good. That is, yes. Thank you. Like, yes, Yes. Yeah.
Such an inspiration. So Deirdre, you have a business. Do you want to tell our listeners of what you do and how they can get in touch with you if they're interested?
Yeah, right. So as I shared before we started, ladies, I'm rebranding Renation. So the electronic piece is offline right now. However, they can reach out to me via my email, coach, the word coach, dot first name, Deirdre, DEIRDRE, .guilfoyle, GUILFOYLE @gmail.com. And if I was an inspiration and you're interested, I would be very happy to offer you a free consultation, which I call Make Peace with You Breakthrough. And for the first 5, I'd really like to gift them with a book called Sacred America, Sacred World. I don't know if you've read it, ladies, but it's fulfilling our mission and service to all. And I bring this up because Napoleon comes to mind, not from the court case, but Napoleon said, give me a good mother and I'll give you a good nation.
Mm.
And I feel so strongly that, and all mothers are well-meaning and loving and, intend to be good, but something is missing. And sacred mothers, sacred homes, sacred America, sacred world. So I'm happy to purchase a book for the first 5. And yeah.
Wow, that is so generous. So if you're interested,
And the work you do is right now mostly working with mothers and with nannies and
Yes, mothers and nannies of children 0 to 8 years old who struggle with their own, they have an idea maybe or not that their own relationship with their mother as a child might be influencing or impacting the way they are as a mom. But basically the results they want to connect, create a deeper connection in their family relationships, peace in their home. And I think through working with me, they would get that bigger picture, like be the change in the world. Some of them, just the home unit right now is big enough to work on.
well, peace starts at home. Well, peace starts with me, but then peace starts at home, right? Yeah.
So one word, if I ask anyone, if you only could have one thing, like you said, the magic, what would you want? And they just say peace, but they haven't given it much thought beyond that. So it's quite interesting. Yeah.
what a delicious vision. Yeah. And all the notes for Deirdre will be, all the information for Deirdre will be in the notes for the podcast. So if you did not write it down, just feel free to find it in the notes for the podcast. You'll also find notes for Martina and my link trees. Thank you, Deirdre, so much for being here with us, for sharing your commitment to empowering women, especially nannies and mothers, but also just to hold that space for people to be whole. What an exquisite gift that is in and of itself. So thank you for sharing your story with us today. Thank you everyone for listening. If you love this, please leave us a review. Please share with your friends. And please always remember that you are extraordinary and you rock. Until next time, have a wonderful day.
Bye for now. Deirdre, you want to say bye?
Yeah, I just want to thank you all for listening and you two for having me here. And really, you're not alone. That's what I'd like to say to every mother and or nanny listening and everyone else. And the universe has your back and I'm with you in spirit. I can assure you of that, with you in spirit. You got this.